countries. Somehow Niger turned a nigga and shit got ugly. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists. To Noble Drew Ali started dropping that consciousness.
Every word we use, it has a capacity. And if you don't understand the word you're using and understand the capacity of it, you are using words that is creating a destiny for you that you don't even know or even conscious of.
Peace everybody, welcome back. It's Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey. Today we're going to be talking about rights of indigenous people, how to cure things like gentrification, homelessness, and one of the major reasons why people are arrested, which is possession of cannabis and stuff like that. And we're going to try to go into how we can begin to implement plans to end that kind of stuff. Because what I've noticed is our people, we have a lot of complaints about our harsh mistreatments and no like foundation to stand on to end that mistreatment. You get what I'm saying? Like we kind of like, we complain about gentrification, but what's the cure to it? You see what I'm saying? So we're trying to focus on the cure to things, not just these bad things are happening and they're just happening. You know, everyone knows there's bad stuff happening, but here's the cure. So I wanted to go into the draft of the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And this was approved in 1995. And just so people have an understanding of who this applies to. So in Article 1, under the section Indigenous Peoples, Article 1, definition number 1. In this declaration, indigenous people are those who embody historical continuity with societies which existed prior to the conquest and settlement of their territories by Europeans. And here's the alternative definition number 1. As well as peoples brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves and cultures from which they've been torn. So this applies to quote-unquote black people. Just so you have kind of like an understanding of how this affects us specifically. You see what I'm saying? So this doesn't apply to so-called Indians. This applies to so-called black people. Now I kind of want to go into the definition of what these two dictionaries have to say about who we are. So can you go to Blackamoor? And then I'm going to go to American, because we apply the word black to any dark-skinned person, right? Yeah. When we already know black means pale. So first I'm going to go to black in this dictionary, and this is American Dictionary of the English Language, Noah Webster's 1828. We're going to go to what black is in this dictionary and what American is in this dictionary. And I'm just going to say the word, we apply black to dark-skinned people when really it's the word swarthy, which means dark skin. So we're kind of using the wrong word, right? Let me just go into this book. Black, it's an adjective, so that means it's not a person, place, or thing. It's a modifier or descriptive. To become pale, to turn white, to become black. Pale, wan, livid. To bleach, to lighten. Pale, to bleach. Pale. It is remarkable that black, blake, and bleach are radically one word. The primary sense seems to be pale, wan, or sallow. So that's what black means. And here's the definition of American. American, noun, so that's a person, place, or thing. A native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-toned races found here by Europeans. Can you go to the definition of Blackamoor?
Blackamoor, a noun. A dark-skinned person.
A dark-skinned person. So aren't all those various copper-toned natives dark-skinned?
Yes.
You see how the Moors are the Americans? And then in the book it separates the adjective black and the noun Moor, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that means those people who think that they're black are actually Moors.
Yes.
And those people who think that they're black and from Africa are actually indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the rights of indigenous people applies to them. and this is from the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So all the other American states, like South America, Central America, all of them recognize us as indigenous people. You see? And they're saying it.
And it's taken care of. It doesn't matter what
Exactly.
you do or don't know about
All we have to
your
do
own
is recognize.
history.
All we have to do is recognize ourselves first. Like a lot of people think, oh, or who's going to recognize you if you say you're a Moor?
Everybody already has.
Everyone already does. Exactly. You just have to recognize yourself. They're just not going to tell you, oh, you're a Moor. Every man, woman, and child must confess under their own. You know, they must say who they are. No one can say, oh, you're a Moor. Like.
And they're not going to tell us because they don't want us to know.
No, not that. But no one can tell you who you are.
No.
No Cuban can say, oh, you're a Moor. You have to know who you are. I can't start pointing at Asian people saying, oh, no, you're Japanese, you're Chinese, you're Thai. I can't do that.
Yeah, they don't. You don't have that authority to tell somebody.
And the rest of the world
are.
can't do it for us, you see. But here's what they're doing. They're saying, we're going to recognize you as soon as you wake up. But you ain't black. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of like where we need to start thinking, like, this really applies to us. But then again, we'd also have to know, you know, your nationality is what establishes your ability to call and to force your rights. Because in law, your status is everything. Now, can you look up what nationality reads? All right, so this is kind of like, I wouldn't be able to talk about this and not talk about any of this. Like, this is kind of like, you have to have a background. I can't start talking about the rights of indigenous people without, you know, pointing to you and to the rest of the people how it applies to us, right? So nationality.
Nationality. Nationality determines the political status of an individual, especially with reference to allegiance.
So it's kind of like, who do you have allegiance to, right? Now it says political status, right? Can you go to what political means? So establishes your nationality establishes your political status. So that's how you're recognized on a political platform. So no other nation's not going to recognize you unless you have a nation, right? Unless you have a nationality. Okay. Now, what does political say? Since nationality establishes your political status, what does political mean?
It's so funny, the dogma in America has us shying away from doing anything with politics.
Right.
I don't want to speak on that.
Well, it's because they have a corrupt form of politics, so we think that's what politics is. When that platform, the democracy platform, is a corrupt system to rob us, that's why we don't want to get involved in politics. Because we think it's that, but that's not really what it is, right?
Political.
Yeah.
Relating to the management of affairs of state, as political theories of or pertaining to exercise of rights and privileges.
So, your nationality is what determines your ability to manage your own affairs and to call and to force your rights. So without no nationality, how can you enforce the rights of indigenous people?
You can't.
And then even in the rights of indigenous people, it's and Declaration on Human Rights and Rights of a Child, it says every person has the right to a nationality. Because we're the only people who walk around claiming we don't have a nationality. Black's not a nationality, Spanish isn't, Indian is someone else's, Latin isn't a nationality, Latin American, Afro-Rican, Puerto Rican's not a nationality. See what I'm saying? Like all these things, and we're just in this...
We just make up these titles that aren't attached to land.
Because people are part and parcel, you see? So, and then can you go to status, please? Since your nationality corrects your political status, we know what political is. It's the right to manage your own government, the right to call and to force your rights. Now we have to know what status is.
We're the only country that allows people to come in and call themselves an American.
Yeah, because we give up our birthright.
In other countries, it doesn't matter how many generations, if you're born, you are not attached to the land.
Because it's bloodline. Literally, it's bloodline. Unless you mix with the people, you're not of the land. Because the people are the land.
Status. Standing, state, or condition. Ryan Olds v. Pennsylvania Oil
So
Company.
that's the law case. So that's giving you an example so you can research it. So it's one standing, state, or condition. Now what else does it read?
The legal relation of an individual to rest of the community.
So that means, since these Europeans are foreigners, what's their relationship to us? Since our status is we're the Aboriginals, we're the nationals of the land, we're in a superior status. Just like if I was to go to China, the Chinese people would be in a superior status because that's their home. See what I'm saying? Now what else does it read?
the rights, duties, capacities, and incapacities which determine a person to a given class.
Now notice it says incapacities.
Mm-hmm.
So if your status is dead, that means you don't have the capacity to call and enforce rights, correct?
Yes.
You see? So since your nationality is your status, without your nationality, you have no rights. What else does it read?
A legal personal relationship, not temporary in its
Not
nature.
temporary. So that means no one can take your nationality away from you because it's your bloodline. But if you don't want to recognize it, that's on you. What else?
Not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties with which third person and the state, are concerned.
And now I forgot to bring it again, but I didn't bring it. When I helped that person get her stuff dismissed, it's because our status is correct. We know we're home. You can't tell me what to do on my land. I'll try to bring it next time because it's like it's because it's sealed from the Superior Court and everything, like.
Nice.
And you can just look up the case and you can see what we submitted and you can see what's going on. Like, this is how you apply who you, like, I'm home. Right? Jurisdiction. Juris means right. Diction is words. You don't have the right to speak to me on my land. So what do you mean I have to go to your court?
Yeah.
That's just an example. And it worked. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, all right, can you continue? Because there's a specific part.
It also means a state. Because it signifies the condition of the circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property.
So that means if you don't have a nationality, since people are the land, then you don't have any land. This is why mortgages, we already talked about that, that's not ownership or creating a title to an estate. And Indian titles, which also isn't recognized as ownership, has been forced on our people because we don't have a nationality, meaning we don't claim anything. You see how that works?
Yeah.
That's it in operation. That's nationality. What happens when you don't have it? The situation we're in right now, that's what happens. You see? And then the situation when you fix it, that's Cuba, that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Now, we already know what Cuba did. We know the situation we're in. We see that. Now let's talk about the remedy. You see, so nationality is your status. Your status is your standing state condition as it relates to your property, how you manage your affairs, and your mental competence. Because if you don't know any of this, you wouldn't claim the land that's at your feet. You see? This is why they dumb us down in the schools.
And that's why a lot of people in America are confused about Native American versus nationality.
Yeah. Cause
and being Aborigines, Aboriginal,
But
indigenous.
all of those are just words, right? Native American. Mexicans are Native Americans. Brazilians are Native Americans. But Brazil and Mexico, that's the nation that they belong to. That's the bloodline. That's the land. This isn't India. So how can you be Indian and then be Aboriginal here? It doesn't make sense.
No.
That's why Indians don't have anything. And everything they do have is regulated by the state.
Yeah.
This is also why black people don't have anything. And everything they do have is regulated by the state. That's Article 21 of the Christian Black Codes. Either 21 or 22. And it states, Christian property can't own property. That's your status. You're in a civilly dead status. You have no right to anything.
Yeah.
You see? That's really how it works.
That's why you pass away and they come in and scoop up everything that you never owned in the first place.
Because you're considered a ward of the state.
Yep. You're just a placeholder. Of all the property that they claim that
they're just administrating.
Yeah. Because
we won't administrate it. Remember it says administration of your affairs? We won't do it because we think we're from somewhere else. When this is Northwest Africa. Here. Let me see. Right? Now, because we say this is Morocco, which it is. Now let's go into Treaty of Peace and Friendship, right? Let's go into expatriation and citizenship on the United States. Right? Citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc. 459, chapter 5, temporary provisions. And then right under there, what's the name of the country?
Morocco.
And this is in 1906. Now, the Kingdom of Morocco wasn't founded until 1956. So they must be talking about here. Right? Now, so this is just in a record from, Congress. This is what they're talking about. So they clearly, citizenship of the United States, they named the country Morocco. So that means the Moors are from Morocco.
Yeah.
This is Morocco. And then they talk about, let me see. They talk about how we only lost our citizenship through naturalization. That's the 14th Amendment. Because we gave up our nationality. We literally gave it up. Once we stopped calling ourselves by it, we give it up. Now, we can talk about this a little bit later, but I want to go into this, right? So some of the stuff that, so we established that, can you put this on? You put this on the table. I'm going to hold it. So we established that rights of indigenous people applies to us, right? We established that those people who think that they're black are actually Moors, and we did it with just a simple dictionary. We proved that the Americans are the various copper-toned natives found in America. So when the Cubans did what they did, they're copper-toned. The Mexicans, they're copper-toned. Us, we're copper-toned. That's what I'm saying. Now, we established some of the problems we have, which is gentrification and homelessness, right? And do you want to talk about what gentrification is?
Basically, they come and take all the land, evict the people that live in the land, which would be considered quote-unquote blacks, minority, urban community.
Because their status is dead. See how they're able to just do that? Yep.
And then they redevelop the community for European Caucasian.
So that's
community.
literally an example of them living off our estate and our birthright, because we won't do it.
And this is always forcibly removed from your location.
So what you're saying right now is that they're forcing indigenous people off of their land.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. Now here's what the rights of indigenous people has to say about that, right? So we're just going to go into Article 2 on the rights of indigenous people, and this is about gentrification. So keep this in mind, keep this in context. Article 2? Yeah. All right. Indigenous people and individuals are free and equal to all other peoples and individuals, and have the right to be free from any kind of discrimination in the exercise of their rights, in particular that based on their indigenous origin and identity. Meaning, when we say we're Moors, you can't tell us that we're not Moors. Right? Article 8. I didn't write that down. Article 8, Clause 2. Let's just go into Clause 1. Indigenous people and individuals, so that means because people are asleep, like the masses are asleep. So most of the time you see individuals running around talking about, we're Moors, everyone wake up please, because we need help, right? So that's why it says individuals, because the rest of the world knows what's going on. It's just we're the ones who don't, right? So they specifically set things up so individuals can help fix the problem. Have the right to not be subject to forced assimilation or destruction of their culture. Clause 2. States, so this is the state's responsibility to us. States shall provide effective mechanisms for prevention of and redress for, and then it has the following: A, any action which has the aim or effect of depriving them of their integrity as distinct peoples, or of their cultural values or ethnic identities. B, any action which has the aim or effect of disposing them of their lands, territories, and resources. C, any form of forced population transfer which has the aim or effect of violating or undermining any of their rights. D, any form of forced assimilation or integration. E, any form of propaganda designed to promote or incite racial or ethnic discrimination directed against them. So doesn't it just say the state must protect us from gentrification?
And they're the ones implementing it.
Why?
Because we don't claim our land.
We don't claim our land, and we're under colonial occupation. This whole racism thing, the stuff that we're complaining about, it's not racism, it's colonial occupation and conversion of our estate. That's gentrification. What else do we have written down here?
I wonder what's going to happen in Texas.
Article 10. Indigenous people shall not be forcibly removed from their lands or territories. Isn't this the cure to gentrification? How come black people and Indians aren't talking about this when this is the cure? But they talk about, oh, you need to own more homes and get a mortgage, and then you'll hear I hear a lot of black people saying, buy back the block. So you're buying back something that's already yours. Does that make sense?
No.
If this is my laptop and you have it, and the United Nations says Jamal has the right to his laptop, why would I pay you for something that's mine? And it's simple, right? All right. No relocation shall take place without the free prior and informed consent of the indigenous peoples concerned, and after agreement on just and fair compensation, and where possible, with option of return. So that means they can't tell us what to do unless we agree to it. Why? Because we're the heirs of the land, because our status is that of nationals, not citizens and not subjects. When you say you're black, Indian, Spanish, you're going to be subject, not a citizen. You see, this is also why they claim eminent domain over people. Because they're acting like government, and they're claiming eminent domain, meaning you're a subject, so we can do whatever the hell we want. But the people don't know that, so they don't have the knowledge, so they don't have imperium, so they can't do anything.
Yeah.
You see, this is the knowledge being handed to the people, literally. And Obama signed this when the Bush administration wouldn't, and no one else wouldn't. But then people say Obama didn't do shit for black people, because he didn't. He did shit for Moors, for indigenous. You see what I'm saying? So it's like people's concepts are like all messed up.
Yeah.
Because of European occupation and indoctrination, which we keep calling education when it's really not.
No.
So they're telling us all the stuff to keep us dumb. They're abusing us. We know it, and then we won't argue what the facts are because we have an emotional connection to the word black and African American and Spanish, and I'm a Latino and I'm a strong black man, and when that's really what's killing us. You know, Noble Drew Ali said one of the problems is we keep using those words that delude to slavery. You're using a word that puts you in an inferior status. It's literally the words that we're using that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's really nothing else. That, and there's a physical presence of European, de facto persons on our land and their companies that are suppressing us. So it's kind of like, let me see. There's a leech on our hand and it's sucking our blood. But we keep talking about how much we have to work to pay a doctor to fix this cold that we have. When the issue is not a cold, it's the leech. The leech is the European occupiers on our land. But we keep talking about racism. When that's not the issue. The issue is genocide, gentrification, terrorism, and occupation of our land. And then they're using mental warfare with the schools, and they're not teaching us any of this. So it's kind of like, once you see the situation for what it is, scary, unpleasant, but you still have to do something about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you still have to, I feel like you have to tell others, this is what's going on, the gentrification, here's how you fix it. Do you want to come help me fix this? You know what I mean? Or just spread the word, and then whoever wants to help will come and help.
Which is why we're making these videos.
Yeah. All right, so let's try to get back on track, because I can go off, I get all passionate and stuff. Let's see what else we got here. Article 20, right? Indigenous people have the right to maintain and develop their political, economic, and social systems or institutions to be secure in the enjoyment of their own means of substance and development, and to engage freely in their traditional and other economic activities. So that's pretty much saying we have the right to set up a Moorish Science Temple of America, because that's pretty much what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to help facilitate all this stuff of getting our stuff back. You see what I'm saying? Article 20, Clause 2. Indigenous people deprived of their means of substance and development are entitled to just and fair compensation. This is pretty much enforcing the Constitution. You can't have your stuff taken without the right to due process. Or just compensation. So again, like Noble Drew Ali said, enforce our free national constitution. So remember Article 6 of the Constitution, right? It says all debts and contracts entered into in the Confederation shall be valid against the United States and shall be a supreme law of the land, right? So let's just read that word for word, because I just paraphrased. Just so you have more of a platform to stand on. I have a bunch of stuff everywhere. Article 4. Where is it? Article 6, right? Article 6, prior debts, national supremacy, oaths of office. All debts, contracted, and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. So that means Articles of Confederation still apply. Now just talk about that. Article 4 of the Articles of Confederation states, every person has the right to free ingress and regress into every other state. So that means you don't have to pay toll taxes. As an example, that's a way to save finance. Because toll taxes are for commerce. So all these trucks doing business from this state to that state, you have to, I'm coming to your territory, here's a little tax. That's what that is. But people think...
That's for everybody.
See, that's the knowledge, right? Okay. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. Now, didn't Obama sign this?
He did.
So that means rights of indigenous people is the supreme law of the land, huh? Okay, I thought so. Right? So, again, this is constitutional. And Obama was a constitutional lawyer, and he taught it. He taught constitutional law, right? Article 21. Indigenous people have the right, without discrimination, to the improvement of their economic and social conditions. Don't we talk about how black people don't have any economic wealth? Including, inter alia, amongst other things, in the areas of education. Don't black people talk about how we're so miseducated?
Yeah.
Employment. Don't black people talk about how we don't have any jobs? Oh. Vocational training, meaning to be trained to do a job, right? And retraining, housing, homelessness, sanitation, health, and social security. What, is that confusing?
Not at all.
Is that hard to comprehend or understand or?
No.
So why are people still complaining about these things instead of enforcing this and then getting those things? I can pretty much guess why. One, this isn't commonly known. Like we all know, like, what's it? Like Empire. We all know that show's on TV. How many people talk about this?
Nobody.
So you can complain about how we don't have any housing, economic wealth, blah 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 blah. But you're gonna watch Empire, which doesn't educate you on shit, and not read this, and implement a plan to enforce this.
But you know who does read that?
Europeans.
Europeans.
Oh yeah, can you tell that story?
I went to the library over this weekend, and I'm getting out of my car, and this European Caucasian lady is talking to her daughter about how ridiculous the rights of indigenous people is, and they can't believe that they would do this to them, and going on and on. And when I got out of my car, she didn't have anything to say, but
because you got the copper tone skin, right?
Everything in this sounds perfectly reasonable. And this woman was very upset.
Because they benefit off us not knowing we're home. Literally. That's why they do the gentrification stuff. So they come into our shitty neighborhoods that they force us in, right? They start fixing stuff. They raise the taxes. We don't know how to combat it. So we're paying taxes on our own land. It's not funny, but we're paying taxes on our own land. We don't know how to fight it. The Europeans just say, yep, you got to keep paying, and we think that they're government. And they're foreigners, and we know that they're pilgrims. We know that they're from Europe. We know they're Europeans, but they come to our land, which we don't know is our land, and they force us to pay this stuff. And Noble Drelly said we're gonna get taxed out of our own homes, and they're doing it, right? So this stuff goes up. We don't know how to fight it because we don't know this, and then the European comes in and it benefits them.
And it's so sad. Not one, but many of our people won't pick this up, won't read it, won't try to decipher it and understand it, but believe that every European Caucasian person is walking around and knowing and
fearing
reading these
stuff.
things. Yep.
Fearing it. Because they know. They know.
It's 2017 and she's stressed out about something that was signed in 2010.
Yep. Obama signed this. Because they know once the people start enforcing this, they have nothing, right? So the Europeans charge us taxes on our land. Once we realize it's our land, who's going to be paying taxes to us?
Everybody.
All these foreigners, all these Europeans, like them, literally them, going to be paying us rent to be on our land. So that's the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That's that letter that we read from George Washington to the Sultan of Morocco, apologizing for not paying taxes.
And we don't have to feel bad about this either.
That's the
other thing. People feel bad when somebody moves into your house and they're just using up all your resources, eating all your food, stretched out on all your space. Wouldn't you charge them rent?
And that's exactly what Cuba did.
That's that's perfectly reasonable.
If you and I were to go to China, wouldn't we have to pay the Chinese government, the Chinese people for being on their land?
Yeah.
Why is that wrong? Don't we have to, this is our land, right? Us, copper tone people who think that we're black, don't we go into these homes and we pay these foreigners rent? So, but we're morally like, nah, we don't think that's right, but we'll do it.
Yeah.
You know,
we'll let people do it to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just use and abuse us because we don't know what to stand on.
And it's not, for us to enforce this is not racism.
It's not wrong. It's our birthright.
Yeah. It's a birthright. And we're asking to be justly compensated.
So if I'm like, you ask me to use my laptop, I can either say, yeah, you can do it for free, or I can say, yeah, I'm going to charge you $2 an hour. Just like when we go to the library and want to print copies, they charge us 20 cents a piece of paper. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not because my skin's brown.
Do you one better. If somebody asks to use your house, if somebody asks to use your backyard, how long? Indefinitely. Well, can you pay me for it? That's that.
and that's also why the Treaty of Peace and Friendship was to be signed every 50 years. It's because like you can't transfer hereditaments, the land, you can't transfer it to anyone else. But you can have an agreement like so the rest of the world's knowing what's up, except for us.
Yeah,
literally.
People in this land, on this land, know what's up.
Except for the heirs to the land, except for the people of the land.
Yep.
We think. All right, so we think we're from Africa. Now here's 100 amazing facts about the Negroes. A short book, so don't be intimidated. This is a tiny book, right? Tiny book. Fact number 64. You don't really... I didn't learn this in high school when I was learning about slavery.
Oh, no. We learned European history.
This is page 19. The first slaves held in the United States were not black. Now, connotatively, they're talking about dark skin, but we already know black means pale.
Yeah.
But white. We already know Moors are white people. And if you're European, you have to be intermixed with something else to even be considered white. Right? So, but for what it's saying, they're talking about black and white. They were Europeans, and then they specifically say Europeans.
Yeah.
And then they name their nationalities, mostly British, who died like flies on the slave ships across. On one voyage, 1,100 perished out of 1,500. At another time, 350 out of 400. In Virginia, white servitude was for a limited period, but was sometimes extended for life. In the West Indies, they're talking about here, but this ain't India. Particularly in the case of the Irish, it was for life. White people, Europeans, were sold in the United States, Morocco, up to 1826, 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Andrew Johnson, President of the United States, was a runaway and was advertised for in the newspapers. And our people always talk about how, we were slaves.
So were they.
And they were ours. Right? Golden Age of the Moor. Because our people always talk about this slavery thing. We keep playing this victim thing. But if you just read a book, it'll tell you we had them in bondage first. Right? Now let me see if I can find this real quick. It's probably not going to be real quick because this is a big book. But I have a lot of stuff highlighted. Yeah, you can pause it.